goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello, and welcome to another gorgeous Friday. At least, we've had a string of... Well, that's not true. The sun never came out the last few days. However, hi. It is Friday. It's the last Friday of August. Good God. Someone once tried to explain to me, and because it involved mathematics, and I'm sure I brought this up before, and you guys have tried to explain it to me, and the phenomenon of the older you are, the faster time goes. And you cannot have making small talk with anyone. I went to a doctor's office yesterday, and making small talk with the doctor, she said something to the effect of, my gosh, it's almost September. Where does the time, and then we look at each other and we all say, I can't believe it. Where does the time go? Has anyone ever answered that question when we pose it to each other, shaking our heads? And then remember when you're a kid, how it seems like forever time. It seems like forever. But I guess the less time you have left, the quicker it goes. But I can't quite remember why that is. I don't know. Anyway, I've been feeling it very much. Did you see something in the paper today somewhere that said that looking at all the stats they have now in terms of temperatures and climate change and changing patterns, blah, 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 they're saying that Pittsburgh is going to essentially have the same weather as Washington, D.C. has now, that's where we're heading. We're heading... I don't like it. I'm glad I won't be around. We're heading hotter, more humid. They said that there'll be much less snow. Some of you might like that, but they said if you own a ski resort in Pennsylvania, you better start looking for other possibilities because no one's going to come here to ski. But they said, I mean, sooner rather than later. It was, I think, 2050. So just telling you, those of you to whom that applies. Yeah, you young folks, well, you're just going to have to adjust. Just like you're adjusting to changing economic situations, adjusting to a new template for how employers consider their responsibilities to employees, or in fact, what an employee is. The National Labor Relations Board, on a 3-2 vote along party lines yesterday, put out a ruling that apparently, which, by the way, I left on my dining room table, so don't ask any specifics of me. But it was a win for hourly workers. It was a win for people who are always being told that they can't unionize. It's a win for people who are contract workers. And so many Americans now work in these situations where no one's responsible for you. You are an employee, but you're not. So you're not entitled to benefits, and you're not entitled to all the protections that we normally think, we used to, are part and parcel of being an employee. And these new business models that the big boys are coming up with are very, very hard on workers. And the NLRB decision yesterday will make it easier for those workers who have otherwise been told they have no standing to unionize, that will allow them to unionize. And it's going, apparently there's another pending case where McDonald's, for instance, says that any one of its franchises, so the McDonald's you go to might in fact be a franchise which is owned by somebody. McDonald's has said forever, and the NLRB and the labor laws that exist have backed them up, that those are not our, when something happens at a franchise McDonald's, those aren't our employees, says McDonald's Corporation. Not ours. We got nothing to do with it. So when McDonald's raises their hourly wage, that only applies, as I think we've learned, to the restaurants that they themselves own, which is a tiny percentage of the McDonald's. Odds are the ones you go to are owned by some other person and not by McDonald's. So the NLRB is trying to keep pace with this constantly changing idea of what is a worker, and the labor laws that exist now don't really cover this environment we've created. So because we have a Democrat in the White House with the power to appoint the members of the National Labor Relations Board and other regulatory agencies, you at least have people at those agencies who care about workers. We all know that when Republicans are in the White House, they put people on these agencies who care about employers. And indeed, the vote that happened yesterday along party lines was 3-2, 3 Democrats saying, I mean, these laws have got to change and regulations have got to change to reflect this changing work and environment in which an increasing number of American workers, and it's a huge number of American workers, are employed through third parties, through temporary staffing, temporary employment agencies. They belong to nobody. No one's responsible for them. And the NLRB in its decision, 3-2, said that undermines the core protections of the National Labor Relations Act, the act that created the board in the first place. was to look after workers and make sure they weren't being just rolled over by employers. And I guess the ruling yesterday was a small step in that direction. Republicans are squawking and screaming. All their lobbyists and corporate entities are squawking and screaming and calling on Congress to immediately pass law. And we have a Republican-controlled Congress. But then thank God for the Democrat in the White House who could maybe veto any onerous new laws they might pass, which would keep employees. Oh, I'm sorry, they're not employees anymore. They're workers. They're unrepresented, undocumented workers. I mean, I'm one. That's my status. I don't work for anybody here. I do not. I serve at, Pittsburgh City Paper provides me with this studio and with Celine, but I am not paid. That's up to me to do. So you can imagine how much I'm making here, right? But I can do that. I am beyond retirement age. I do this out of love for it. But if I were a young person, younger, and I was still supporting, I couldn't live the way I'm working now. Even as a part-time job, it would be a joke. But now it works. This works for me, and it works for City Paper, so I'm not complaining. I mean, I definitely happily signed on to this. But most people can't do that, and they don't have any. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. And then you look at, the new breed of corporate management, and hearkening back to that Amazon takedown that the New York Times did, looking at the culture there of how employees are treated. And what created that environment is that the guy who owns Amazon, who dreamed it up, Bezos, most unpleasant name.
Sounds like
It sounds like a bizarre. Is that what I had? Yeah, a Bezor. Bezor, yeah. Which is this disgusting, human hairball that people get in their stomachs. I had one. It's not the kind of thing you want to advertise, but I had one. It is the ugliest thing you can imagine. A Bezor. So every time I see Bezos, I do think Bezor. Anyway, Bezos.
I think
Beelzebub. There's all just sort of like bzzz. You think being stung. You think bzzz. Anyway, Bezos is, he believes that the customer comes first, which is why Amazon is, we'll get it to your doorsteps in 2 seconds flat. You want something? We got it for you, damn it. And from the customer's point of view, that's pretty cool. You're on your computer and you say, ooh, I want that, and it's at your doorstep the next day? That's neat. But it turns out that the bad side of this model is that the workers who make sure that that thing you had to have tomorrow is at your doorstep, they work in an environment which is insane, unpleasant, maybe even unhealthy, in a psychological way, sometimes even in a physical way. You may recall, although the white-collar workers in Seattle are the ones that got the sympathy when we heard about how things work at the headquarters in Seattle. But the way Amazon works, of course, is that it has warehouses, huge warehouses all over the country. And people are constantly, that's where the items are kept, that's where they're grabbed, that's where they're packaged, shipped out so that it can be on your doorstep, bango, like that. And you may recall about 4 or 5 years ago, a Scranton newspaper. No. Allentown. Bruce. Allentown newspaper broke a story about the unbelievable conditions inside an Amazon warehouse, where the people working in there were pushed and pushed and pushed until they quit, until they were just strung out, until they got injured. It didn't matter. That's the model. Work them till they drop and then get someone else in. Work them till they drop, get somebody else in. This is how the system works. And they even found out that this warehouse did not have any air conditioning, and that during the summer and during heat waves, people would literally be dropping in the warehouse. So much so that guess what Amazon did? God bless them. They had ambulances and paramedics parked outside waiting for their next patient. That was their reaction, not put air conditioning in the warehouse. When the guys dropped, they at least finally had ambulances to take them out. So that's how they treat their blue-collar workers. Their white-collar workers are losing their minds, and their families are falling apart because they're never home, and they're suffering all kinds of nervous tics, anxiety disorders. But they're making money, at least those people, and I believe they have air conditioning. It's an adversarial atmosphere where you're actually expected to rat on your fellow employee. So if Celine and I are working in the same little place, and I see that she's like on her cell phone a lot or something, I can report that. I report that. Celine is doing an awful lot of checking of her phone. And she can write that Lynn barely even gets in before the show starts and blah, 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 right? And leaves immediately afterwards. And doesn't empty the wastebasket. Well, a normal work week at Amazon for the white-collar guys is 80 to 85 hours. If you get sick, you're in trouble. Oh, they have lavish sick leave, but don't take it. So, all of this begs the question of what are workers and who are workers, and is it okay to look at them as disposable? Because Amazon's model does, and the contract culture does. We'll need somebody, we bring them in, we don't owe them anything except like whatever and blah, we take them out. We have no responsibility for them. We don't pay them any benefits. That's the culture we got going now. And you see what it yields? It yields a disappearing middle class. It yields financially very, very... What's the word? Where you're just one step away from falling off the edge. People living under such stressful conditions. And, it was different for me when I began my career. I'm already, one of the reasons I can do this contract job now, as an independent contractor now, is because I do have a pension. Can you imagine that? I have a pension from the Hearst Corporation because I worked at a Hearst television and radio station for 10 years. I got vested, and while that was not the majority of my working life, Hearst, God bless them, every month pays me for the rest of my life. Don't expect anything like that anymore. Caller, hi.
Hello, Lynn. It's the Uber model.
It is.
Okay, that's what you do. You don't pay any benefits. You don't pay nothing. You pay your own taxes.
Right.
You can work. I mean, people tout, you hear commercials about different things, but that's like you said, that's what we've become, okay? We'll just extract what we can out of you, not pay you any benefits. You're just a piece of crap, and we'll replace you. And if you don't like it, get the hell out of here.
It's absolutely right. Who's John Oliver? I didn't hear the whole thing, but he did a takedown of this kind of culture. And there's a word for it now, the sharing culture. And he was talking about who's sharing. He said, do you think somebody really wants to rent their apartment out to somebody to sleep in their beds and do all this stuff and clean up after other people like Airbnb does now? But that's because they need money. Everybody's out there scrambling on their own, sharing their apartment, sharing their car. And the businesses making money hand over fist, and nobody's responsible.
Exactly. My wife just had to watch these movies. She's a nurse, and she had to watch mandatory videos about, and it's basically propaganda. I'm not going to get into different situations. But it's like you said, they mentioned sort of, like we were mentioning about Amazon, they kind of said that too. If you see somebody doing something kind of bad, report them. We're like, there's eyes and ears everywhere. You're being recorded, everything you do. And if we don't, like you said, you mentioned that, hey, Lynn doesn't take the garbage out, maybe give a call to her boss and let her know that she's really not she's not really a team employee.
That's right. I knew you were going to have to use the word team.
Hey, you're not part of the team.
That's right.
You just don't kind of fit in.
That's right.
Ever seen the movie Office Space?
No.
You have to see the movie Office Space. It's the funniest, craziest movie. It's about it's a comedy written about computer consultants. It was I think the director of the movie was the guy from Beavis and Butthead. I can't think of his name, but
God.
Oh my God, Lynn! It's every time it's on TV all the time.
Celine is looking like she's shocked I haven't seen it.
Oh my God, Lynn! It's the
Office Space.
Funniest movie in the world. It's corporate America. Dead on. I mean, you couldn't get any better. It's a satire about how.
Oh wait, is that the one where they end up burning
the shirts on Fridays? That kind of nonsense.
Is that the one where they end up burning the building down?
Yes.
I have seen it.
Okay.
It's brilliant. Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's
yeah.
It's my favorite.
It turns the workers into murderers, practically, and murderous.
It's just crazy. Like I'm sickened by the work world. It's a job. Okay, quit everybody acting like this is their life, and your friends are your life, your family's your life. Whatever your outside interests are, your job is not your life. They say,
but it's your
job. Look at their job as that's their identity.
But it's your job.
It's something you do.
People now, young people, they don't have a job.
They have jobs. Like your producer there has jobs.
Every producer I've ever had has had jobs. Because nothing pays enough.
No.
And they're scrambling and this is, I understand, this is how people live now. This is ugly. This is what happens when the capitalists win.
It's Retropolis. Like you said, that movie, I looked it up on the internet.
Ratopolis. Yeah.
I'm really starting to get into, then I'll get off the air because I can bullcrap too much, is Howard Zinn.
Okay.
You've heard of Howard Zinn?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and my wife just read the book about the history of the United States.
Yes.
And she's It's just, oh my God.
I
can't
know.
believe it's true, but if you look at
Yeah.
other historians,
Yeah.
kind of collaborates what he's saying. So he's not just coming out and saying things that are totally leftist and you're thinking, oh, this must be propaganda. There has to be incorrect. Because if you read other corresponding historians who are not don't have an axe to grind, you'll realize, oh my God, it's correct.
Yeah.
It's it's terrible.
It really is. And I mean, we're entering a new age where workers were always, think of Carnegie
Oh, yeah.
and Frick and how they handled their
yeah.
workers.
Oh, yeah.
And those workers died trying to unionize so that, people after them could have a life and have some measure of dignity and respect. And I got to tell you, we're going to have workers. Workers are going to have to do it
Fox
again.
News, they denigrate the union workers.
I know.
I mean, they make fun of you if you're a union man. And I can't understand, in this city, one of the ultimate union cities, there's still a lot of people that hate the unions. They hate the teachers' unions. They hate this union. They hate that union. I'm saying without the unions, you'd be working 90-hour work weeks with no vacation and no health care.
Yeah.
And if you don't
That's
like
right.
it, like you said, then find another
Yeah.
job where we...
Why do those people who hate unions think they have a paid vacation?
I
How do
don't,
they
Lynn, I
think it's a 40-hour work week or an 8-hour day? How do you think those things got established?
Lynn, I don't know. Like I said, it's beyond me. And sometimes, unfortunately, the poor and middle class don't like unions as well. Because I've already worked at a local restaurant around town, which is a great restaurant. And I would argue with these guys about health care. This is years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I had health insurance through my wife, and they didn't have health insurance, and they didn't want it because they felt somebody, usually a black person, they're using other words for called black people, and the poor people, the homeless people, they said, well, they're going to get this insurance. So therefore, I'll just do a scorched earth mentality where nobody should get anything. And it's called the race to the bottom. That's what we're trying to do in this country. Everybody's racing to the bottom.
Yep.
To get it the cheapest and knock everybody out of the way.
Right.
And that's what
it.
I want.
That's
That's the Amazon culture. Like you mentioned, you're right on track with their motto is we want to serve the customers. Employees be damned, and on the other side of the coin, which is kind of nice, shareholders be damned, because the shareholders have been angry with. Well, I thought his name was Bezos, but whatever his name is.
It is Bezos.
Bezos. The shareholders get upset with him because he really wasn't seeking profit. He said, "I'll make profit. Don't worry about that." But the business model, on the other hand of the coin, is against the employees.
Okay.
They don't care about the employees.
Let's be clear. They don't care one whit. Okay, I got to run. Thanks,
Lynn. Talk to you.
Bye. So you going to the Shady Side Arts Festival tomorrow? It's tomorrow already. Man, this week went quickly. There I go again with time. Yeah, tomorrow and from, 10 to 7, and then Sunday from 10 till 5, I believe. And, just great arts, crafts, stuff. And you don't have to wait for Amazon to deliver it. You'll be dealing often with the very people who have made the stuff, which I always think is very special. You really can ask questions about the jewelry. You can ask questions about how something got made, what it is, how you care. It's good stuff to buy directly from the creator. And that is all available to you on Walnut Street, Shady Side Arts Festival. This weekend, starting tomorrow. Okay, well, I mean, all we're doing is saying what exists now. This is the reality, and I was lucky in that I got in at the tail end of being able to, as I said, actually have a pension from somebody. And I know people who worked for WTAE who now in their retirement, they are living on Social Security, that's the government, and the Hearst Corporation and their pension. Now, without the Hearst Corporation or without that pension, they'd be left to what the new model was, the 401k. When all of a sudden American workers were told, you're going to learn how to play the stock market. And if you're good at playing the stock market, well, maybe you're going to have enough money to retire. If, on the other hand, you're bad at it, and or you don't participate because you don't understand any of this, well, God help you. It's really something. So, we got a call. Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Somewhat keeping with what you're talking about, I was watching the CBS NewsHour last night, and they were having a report about CPAC, Washington. Yeah, in Washington. You know, they passed a legislation to pay workers $15. I think you're familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the airport took the organization or whoever to court, saying that they were exempt because of the land they were on or whatever, and they did not have to pay employees $15 an hour. So it was taken to the courts, and the courts prevailed. So fortunately now, the airport and the airport employees and the people working at the airport grounds will be paid $15 an hour.
Well, that's
So that was a major victory. But one of the interesting things that they stated, Alaska Airlines is headquartered there. And Alaska Airlines used to pay their baggage handlers $20 an hour. They were unionized. But in 2005, they got rid of the baggage handlers and had the service contracted out. And now those workers probably make $12 an hour or less. So that's the type of thing that goes on these days.
yeah. It's something. As the caller before you said, it's a race to the bottom. I think.
Another interesting thing is that it's almost like McDonald's. They were like picketing or protesting with Avis to raise their rates at the airport. Well, Avis does not run the car concession at the airport. It's run by a huge corporation that makes a huge profit. Although this corporation made a huge profit, it would refuse to pay the employees the $15 an hour that were being paid by other companies in the area. So that's the type of thing we're going with.
Yep. They just keep figuring out ways to screw the people who do the work.
And I would hope that in this election season and this next presidential campaign that voters scrutinize all the people who are running and see where they stand on these important issues.
Exactly. Well, I think, thank you, and I appreciate that very much. The reality is that heading into an election, as the caller said, here's what you have to know. If you vote for a Republican, you are voting for more of this, because that party does the bidding of the bosses, of the corporations. It does not mince words about that. They think that the way you lift all boats is by being super wondrous to the 1%, to the owners, to the bosses. We have lived with that mantra now long enough as we watch the middle class disappear, as we watch these new business models come in. And just like I started talking about the NLRB, 3-2 decision, party lines. That would never happen if a Republican were in the White House and had put a majority of Republican commissioners on that board. Inasmuch as you allow Republicans to govern, to sit on regulatory commissions, you are deciding to lift regulations. They don't believe in regulations. So you put Republicans on regulatory commissions, and they They turn the mission upside down. I've joked about it in the past, nothing funny. When Republicans are in charge, the people at the Environmental Protection Agency are not about protecting the environment. They're about protecting big business from regulations concerning the environment. If you want these regulatory agencies, occupational safety and hazard, if you want worker safety, if you want environmental safety, all this kind of stuff, you've got to vote for Democrats. At least Democrats do believe in regulation of business. And I don't know how anyone would argue with it when we see what unregulated business does. Even regulated business, as much as we regulate, we don't much, chews people up and spits them out. This little pushback by the NLRB yesterday shows you the importance of having at least a hope that workers will be cared for or about if you have Democrats in office. I got another, for instance. The trucking industry, ladies and gentlemen. The trucking industry gets everything they want. They have run roughshod over every regulation you can imagine. Congress, controlled by the Republicans, has, and because we pay no attention to this, and also our media pay no attention to it. Back in the day, like an NBC News or a CBS News would actually tell you that Republicans now are trying to roll back regulations that would allow trucking companies to this, that, or the other. They never tell you that anymore. They tell you instead about a 6-year-old boy who stole the family car and took police on a car chase. That's what news is now. Simply water cooler talk. Congress has pursued a number of steps to roll back safety improvements ordered by federal regulators. So here's what happens. You put a Democrat in the White House. He puts people on the regulatory agencies who actually believe in the job. Consequently, they do regulations designed to keep the public safe and to keep workers safe. And then Republicans in Congress, because the lobbyists from the trucking company are beating on their doors, start passing new laws that attempt to push back against those regulations. For instance, listen to what your Republican Congress has been up to while we haven't been paying attention. The Republican Congress has pushed to allow truck drivers to work 82 hours a week. Now, next time you're on the highway and there's some big rig coming up in your rearview mirror, would you be happy knowing that that rig is being driven by somebody who has been working 80 plus hours? Caller, go ahead.
Hey, Lynn, it's Mike from D.C.
Yeah, hi.
The reason that people, I think, vote for Republicans is because they believe the marketing that they're told that someday they'll be the 1%.
That's what I hear. Unbelievable.
They think that the American dream is to be the 1%, or to be Kim Kardashian or any of those other crazy people. That's not the American dream.
No. And you're absolutely... You're right. What is it? Hope springs eternal, I guess. No one wants to identify themselves as anything but, doing okay. See, everybody says they're in the middle class, when in
How's
fact,
that possible?
next to nobody is anymore.
Right.
Right.
They don't even know what that word means
Nobody
anymore.
knows what it means anymore.
And if you ask a little kid what they want to be when they're famous, or God forbid, a high school kid, when they grow up, they say they want to be famous.
Yeah. I know. You want to be famous and rich.
And you say, for what? You say to the high school kid, and they're like, for anything.
Yeah.
So no wonder.
Yeah.
The
yeah.
situation of the world is what it is. They think that is happiness.
Yeah.
Read a book. You'll find out famous people are no more happy than non-infamous people.
You can't argue the point. You can't argue that money doesn't make you happy or that celebrity wouldn't make you happy. People want it. You can't argue it. People aspire.
You've had it. How happy has it made you if you didn't have it?
I've actually thought, I've been happy in my career, but I think the celebrity thing has probably had a negative impact on my personal life.
Because guys are intimidated by it.
Right. I think if I had worked as a regular person, I'd probably, have a more, regular life. I wouldn't have created, this personality. Lynn Cullen has grown over time, and it's hard for me to separate that from who I am. But I think I'd be, different. I'd be quieter. And I would be maybe less intimidating to some people, right? Or annoying. I don't know. No, I really think it's a dangerous thing, celebrity. And I remember when my friend Sally Wiggin finally got her dream when she was appointed to be the Monday through Friday anchor. And I said, I'm so happy for you. But I remember grabbing her arm and saying, just don't become an asshole. Because it's hard not to. Everybody treats you like you're somebody special, and you're flown around, you're this and that, you're kowtowed to.
Your face is on the side of buses.
Yes, faces on the side of buses. You think you're hot. Don't believe your publicity. Don't believe this crap. It's all just marketing. But, I think people in the public eye, it's a very odd reality sometimes. And as hard as sometimes it's been for me, I sometimes wonder, can you imagine on a national or international scale how you can't really go anywhere without the assumption that you are being watched, truly being watched, right? So,
have you seen that Amy Winehouse movie?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's exactly what
I think
it's
it would
about.
break
that
my
poor
heart.
Girl was tortured.
Yeah, I think
tortured.
It would. Yeah. I was in the Giant Eagle yesterday, and this man kept just staring at me. And I'd walk by, and I'd get into it. And then he looked once like he was going to try to approach me. And I thought, oh, God, please don't. I'm just trying to get, and I was racing off down there because he was odd. But he just kept looking at me. And, maybe if I weren't me, I would have just been creeped out. But I made assumptions about, he recognizes me, this, that. I don't know. Yeah, celebrity. I've had a good time, but I think ultimately the impact has been negative, yes. And that's been hard for me to acknowledge.
And if that's your goal in life,
a
teenager's goal in life, they will fail.
Yeah.
Because the only way to become infamous for a few hours, for most people, is to shoot a reporter.
Yeah.
Or someone that people will care about.
Yeah.
So they believe this marketing that the Republicans give us.
Hey, Mike.
Yes.
I just got an email in, and I want to share it with you.
Oy, sorry.
It's from Melanie. In my past life, I worked at a package delivery company whose whole model was using independent contractors. They were consumed with stopping any inkling of unionization or having any responsibility for these people. Believe me, I worked on the executive floor and saw all of this firsthand and was there for Bush's election and the celebration that went on. It was very painful to be there. P.S. I think Mike from D.C. should be a regular on your show.
After yesterday, all your mea culpas, I felt so badly about that.
Oh, no.
I re-listened to Wednesday's show just to make sure.
No, we were fine.
No.
You were fine. I was fine. We were fine. Everything was fine. And that was hardly a mea culpa yesterday. It was, just trying an explanation. But anyway, hey, thank you, as
You're
always.
welcome.
Bye. See, he'll become a celebrity. Okay, so The Republicans in Congress want truckers to be able to work 82 hours a week. Right now, the regulation puts it at, get this, 70 hours. 70 hours. They want to push that up to 82 when anyone in their right mind would be pushing it down from 70. They want to eliminate the requirement that drivers at least have a 2-day rest break before they hit the road again. Also, the Republicans have said that they want to allow, listen to this, longer and heavier trucks on the roads. Despite, and believe me, you ask any American, you want bigger, heavier, longer on the road? They'll say, hell no. God, no. Congress also wants to get this. Wants to lower the minimum age for drivers of large trucks that do interstate commerce to 18. Can you imagine? You can have an 18-year-old working 82 hours a week driving a humongous big rig interstate. Republicans think that's great. Meanwhile, more people will be killed in traffic accidents involving large trucks this year than have died in all of the airline crashes over the last 45 years. So you worried about getting on an airplane? Don't. Worry every time you're on the parkway and there's a big truck next to you, behind you, ahead of you, whatever. You better hope that guy's awake. You better hope they're not on speed. You better hope that they know which end is up. The death toll in truck-involved crashes rose 17% in the last 4 years. And the Republicans want, this is Republicans. This is why I'm saying never vote for any of them again. And Republicans, there's a rise in the number of truck-involved crashes, huge. And they want to push back regulations that say a trucker has to have no more than 70 hours on the road a week. They want it to be 82. God! So that's Republicans. The death toll is rising from truck crashes, and Congress wants to loosen the paltry regulations that are there. So there won't be any of these big semi-trailers at the Shadyside Arts Festival. That's the good news. That is the good news. Shadyside Arts Festival, 19th annual. This weekend, Saturday, Sunday. Everybody's going to be there. It's going to be a beautiful weekend, too. There's jewelry, there's sculpture, there's arts, there's knickknacks, there's paintings, there's food, there's flesh. Well, I mean, people. Celine looked at me like, what the? Whatever. You know, press the flesh. Out there on Walnut Street. So I'm just telling you. By the way, Roger has noticed my... Roger, subject line of his email is, have you heard about the Shadyside Arts Festival? He likens my show this week to this. Michael Vick, dog rescuers, shooting reporters on live television. People can't make ends meet. The world's coming to an end. Have you heard about the Shadyside Arts Festival?
Yeah.
He says, love your lead-ins into the festival this week. It comes across pretty funny. They're chopping off heads. Are you going to the festival this weekend? Well, I'm glad you've enjoyed it because, yes, that was meant to bring a smile. and to get you to go to the Shady Side Arts Festival. So the story today that really blew my mind was this Nazi train. Have you heard about it? They didn't know if this was myth or not, but the myth has been that there is a train loaded with pilfered treasure that the Nazis were taking to Berlin, and it's flat out disappeared. Nobody has ever known where this missing treasure train is, although it was believed to be in Poland. Well, now, actually, a government official has said that they'll be holding a news conference today. They suspect maybe they might have found it. Not they, but two guys who then alerted them. And as far as I understand it, nobody has been has dug to get it, but they know there's a train. There's always concern that the train could be mined and dangerous. According to the local Polish legend, a German train filled with gold, gems, and other things vanished around the city of Walbruck while the crew was fleeing Soviet troops in 1945. And fortune hunters have been looking for it ever since. And two guys, a German and a Pole, say, we think we found it, and we think it's essentially under this glorious, building. According to unofficial information, the train that they have found, or they believe they found, is in a tunnel, secret tunnel, just to the north of this city. The tunnel's entrance was blown up by the Nazis. Other people have hunted for the train. You think, how can you lose a train? I mean, really. That's a big thing. But they do say that there has been a discovery, and the Culture Ministry is on it. And it appears to be a 500-foot-long armored train buried under the ground. So now they're thinking they might have found this train of myth, and now we'll finally see. I hope it goes better than when Geraldo Rivera opened up Al Capone's safe. Do you remember that? God, was that funny. It was like a 2-hour show. And then they blew, they went, and there was nothing in it. Nothing. You remember that? It was like the funniest live television I've ever seen.
Stupid thing to do live.
Yeah. So, the train is of a military nature. Nobody knows what's really in it. However, the guys who found the train said, we get 10%, finder's fee. The Polish government's already saying, I don't know about that. We will give you a note of thanks and maybe pin something on you and send you on your way. But that'll be about it. So, interesting. Those friggin' Nazis. I'm looking at a picture from the Telegraph in the UK covering the story. And they're showing some of the stuff that was found in these salt mines that the Nazis had buried. The treasures, there's art and all that kind of stuff. But there are huge wooden what do you call those? Boxes. Big boxes. Huh? Crates. And they are filled with gold wedding rings. Can you imagine that many circles of gold? Each one representing a marriage between two people who likely were killed. So, those bastards. Margie now says she is weeding naked. Margie, I think you're pulling our leg. That's what I think. Oh, and speaking of wedding rings, I you can get one at the Shady Side Arts Festival. Didn't you know that? Well, I bet you could. And if it's not a specific wedding ring, you could talk to many of the jewelers there and say, how about making me one? You can actually have one made to your specification. Just saying. But speaking of wedding rings, so I saw two pictures in the papers today, and both were of President Obama, and in both his left hand is observable, and in both you see his wedding ring. And what I noted, it's a very simple, it looks very much like these rings that I'm looking at that were taken off all those poor Jews. But what I noticed about his ring is that it rides up high on his, I mean, it's not down at where his finger meets his hand. It's at the knuckle. And I think it's at the knuckle because he's so skinny. And it's just lucky he's got the knuckle because, I mean, it's loose. I'm just saying, Michelle, it's loose. I don't know. What are you going to do about that? Chuck writes, Lynn, I have mixed feelings about lowering the trucking age to 18. Optimal age for the military is 18 to 21, and those soldiers are driving tanks. I wonder if lowering the age will help, not hurt the accident stats. And I've seen some pretty old farts driving those trucks, and I sometimes wonder if they're too old to be doing it. Just saying. P.S. I'm going to the Shady Side Arts Festival.
Just racking them up.
I love it. Okay, well, you know, I really don't have anything else. I was so... Margie, I am pulling your leg. Okay. Aw, I was sort of hoping you were doing all those things naked. And we have another email. No doubt you have read Paul Krugman's New York Times piece, Crash Test Dummies as Republican Candidates for President. I am sending it on to the few Republicans I associate with. They're in my family. Because they always think the Democrats are bad for their bottom line, giving away their money to those less fortunate. The last line in the piece is this. If one of these candidates ends up in the hot seat the next time crisis strikes, we should be very, very afraid. I'm sure, so I you know what, I didn't read it, but I assume he's talking about the fact that all Republicans, when they talk about foreign affairs and crisis in various places, they are always talking about blowing people away. I mean, all they ever want to do is bomb, make war. Diplomacy? They don't know from diplomacy. No. And I suspect that's what he's getting at. Okay, there is a subject I have not taken on because it's one of those subjects that I literally can hardly bear to think about, and obviously it's depressing. But it's one that at some point I'm going to have to, because I find my silence is part of the problem, and the indifference of the world is part of the problem. And I'm, of course, talking about the refugees that are pouring out of so many countries and risking their lives and the lives of their children. I mean, desperate flights for a better life. By sea, where they're drowning by the thousands. Over land, where they're dying as well. This last thing, these decomposing bodies in a truck. I mean, it is horrific. And then to see how the Europeans are dealing with this is also horrific and says much about human nature. It was just 70 years ago that there were streams of refugees in Europe. They were running out of places like Germany and Austria and other countries where the Nazis were on the move. And they were not hospitably received in a lot of those nations. They were told to keep moving. Just get the hell out of here, keep moving. A lot of them died. We in the United States turned them away. Turn them back. So I don't think anything's changed. It's interesting that we could go through what happened in World War II to all those desperate people where we turned our backs, and that we'll do it again. Within the lifetime. I mean, there are people alive today who were alive when that one was happening, some of them survivors of that indifference and silence. So I don't know what the answer is, but it's interesting how we clearly answer the question, am I my brother's keeper? And the answer, a resounding no. If there is a God and that God created us, I want to say he ain't much of a God. That's all I want to say. Because if you were a God and you wanted to create something and then give them free will and the power, wouldn't you do a better job than what we got? I have always said, if there is a God and he did create us, we must be a huge disappointment. All right. And now run off to the Shadyside Arts Festival and have a wonderful weekend as you contemplate the horror of your humanity. Okay? Toodles.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.